All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Placerville City Council. Will everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, again, good evening to everybody, and if I do sound like, I don't know, Elmer Fudd or something along the way, I had to have a tooth surgery, so I'm still a little off with that, with my speaking and definitely chewing, so bear with me. With that, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Clarici?
Here.
Councilmember Gottberg?
Here.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Here.
Vice Mayor No?
Here.
Mayor Saragosa?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, we're going to go to our ceremonial matters tonight. We have two, and so our first one is some of our service anniversaries of city employees, and our city manager, Mr. Morris, has this presentation for us this evening.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Just trying to get organized here.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, we recognize employees when they hit 10, 15, and 20 years. Excuse me. I got to get the years right because I kind of messed up on that previously, but for their service. And so we have, each year we do this. We have 4 certificates for tonight, and I'm going to step down. Well, I'll step down to the microphone there and then ask the department heads to join me in congratulating these employees. Chief Wren, we'll start with your department. Tonight, Joe. So first, from our police department, we have 2 employees. We'll start with Amber Robinson, who has reached 10 years, right? Is that what that is?
10.
Yeah, 10 years. Want to congratulate her.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
I'd like to, I'll let Chief Wren say something if you like. I always remember Amber because she was one of our dispatchers that went through the academy. We put her through the academy and came through and has been a great example of what we can do with our own and taking that. So really appreciate it. Thanks, Amber. Good.
Yeah, she's just an absolute rock star. She's the type of officer you want working in your community. Her dedication and her commitment to the safety of everybody who lives, works, and plays here is definitely to be commended. So thank you for everything you do for us, Amber. You're a rock star.
Thank you.
And our second one is not able to be here tonight. That's Sergeant Goodell, Luke Goodell. And so I'll give this chief, let him say something, and he can present.
Luke is currently attending Supervisory Leadership Institute, which is actually a pretty significant training event for our frontline supervisors. It takes a huge application process, and then you have to be approved by the Commission on Posts to attend. So he's there learning to be a better sergeant. So thank you.
All right.
Can I have the $25 that's in here?
I'd like to thank him for that. Thanks, Chief. This next one, another 10-year certificate, and this is for one of our department heads, Pierre Rivas. So, Pierre, if you'd come up. Pierre, congratulations. So, Pierre, just interesting story with Pierre. Hopefully some of you probably know that Pierre was actually on the city council when they were recruiting when I became city manager. So he kind of hired me, and then a few years later things changed and things went on, and I contacted him and hired him back over here to work for us as our development services director. And he's always been great to work with, and because of that I feel like I've always had a good relationship with Pierre. So thank you, Pierre, for all you do. Yep. Nick, you want to come up? So this last one is a 20-year certificate, right? 20 years, 15, excuse me, 15 years. 15-year certificate for David Tharp in our Public Works Department. So come on up, David. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
If you go to sleep at night and you see leaves all over your street and they're gone in the morning, David's the one that's responsible for that. He's recently, during the fall season, he's been in, 3:30, 4 o'clock every morning, running the street sweeper, trying to keep the streets clean. When it's warm weather, he's working on signs, markings, stop bars, red zones, things of that nature. So always dependable, somebody you can call on, get stuff done. And I know that there's a little something in there for you, but I know that something that David would like more than that is if people could refrain from blowing their leaves into the street and actually put them in the greenway, so it would make his life a lot easier. So, yep. Thanks for everything you do, man.
Yeah, so I've known David Lysay since I came here 10 years ago, and he's always been good in our Public Works Department and out there doing, like you say, those early morning street sweepings are great. So thank you, David.
Thank you, Cleveland. Can we have one more round of applause for everybody? I just want to say thank you for your dedication to this city, to its residents, to its businesses. It's always, I think, a testament to the city. I mean, that we have people that are willing to put in the time and be with us for these amount of years. So again, thank you all for your service. We really appreciate it. And I will open up item 3.1 if anyone would like to make any other public comments on this item. All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close item 3.1, and we'll move to item 3.2, which is a proclamation for the retirement of Suzanne Pronk. And this, I usually love reading these, but this one's sad because Suzanne's leaving, so it's a little bit different. But I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation into the record. And this is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville commemorating Suzanne Pronk's 22 years of faithful service to the City of Placerville. Whereas on January 9, 2001, Suzanne Pronk began her career with the City of Placerville, and whereas then City Manager John Driscoll contracted with Suzanne for clerical services in the Finance Department, and whereas Suzanne's career with the city has been a long and successful one that has met her professional aspirations, and whereas Suzanne has worked diligently over the past 22 years, being hired as an accounting assistant 1, then promoted to accounting assistant 2, and then to accounting supervisor, and whereas Suzanne and her husband John successfully raised her 4 bright and handsome sons, and whereas Suzanne's career has outlived that of 4 California governors and 4 U.S. presidents, and whereas Suzanne has contributed much to the city and its citizens, not just as an employee, but as a warm and caring human being whose staff and the community have come to love and respect. And whereas Suzanne is an exemplary public servant who is known on a first-name basis by hundreds, if not thousands, of members of the public, and I can attest to that. And whereas after 22 years of loyal service to the city, Suzanne will enjoy more time in the great outdoors and fussing over her 3 great-granddaughters, Joanna, Samantha, and Meredith. Now, therefore, I, Michael Zaragoza, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Placerville, state of California, do hereby commend Suzanne Pronk on her 22 years of faithful service to the city of Placerville and declare Friday, December 29, 2023 as Suzanne Pronk Day in the city of Placerville. Congratulations on your retirement.
No, I would never dream of that.
It's been great. And everybody's been awesome. I really mean that. So, a good place to work and a good place to live. Honest.
Okay. Any other Any council members like to make any comments?
I would like to make a comment. Susanna always made paying the water bill really fun. I would just, walk in there and pay my bill, and then we would always end up talking about something. And so it's not the same. In fact, it's so much not the same. I just do it online now, and it's a little sad. Anyway, good luck and thank you, and we're sad to see you go.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to express my appreciation and gratitude for all of the years. You will be missed. Your smiling face coming into the front office. We will miss you a lot. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. And anybody else? Staff, anyone else? Yes, David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So over the past 21 years, I've had the privilege of working with Suzanne. And when thinking about an exemplary public servant, I think of Suzanne. She's a team player. She's selfless, hardworking, honest, loyal, trustworthy, and caring. You couldn't ask for a better employee or friend. I like to refer to the finance department as the face of City Hall because we typically make first contact with the customer when they visit us. For thousands of customers, Suzanne is that face who makes sure they are taken care of. Whether it's receiving their utility bill, establishing a payment plan, or giving directions to Placer County. Imagine what that's all about. Suzanne is a customer service professional. You may not know, but Suzanne is a black belt in verbal judo. It always amazed me how she could quickly bring resolution to a challenging situation and being very direct, yet very respectful at the same time. Suzanne has been our lead decorator, who always ensures the department has a seasonal flair. She always makes sure we remember to celebrate team members' birthdays. And Suzanne, I will miss your baking. Her cheesecake and crackle cookies are to die for. So please visit us often after you retire. Lastly, thank you, Suzanne, for everything you've done for the finance department and the city of Placerville. Well done, good and faithful servant.
Thank you, Dave. And I will go ahead and open up item 3.2 for any public comments. All right, seeing none. Suzanne, again, thank you so much from all of us. Congratulations, and you will be dearly missed. Thank you. Okay, item 4, closed session reports. We don't, I don't know.
Yeah, probably should mention our city attorney and assistant city attorney are ill tonight, so unavailable to be here, but they are available by phone if we need them for anything tonight. And there was no reportable action out of a closed session tonight.
Thank you. All right, moving to item 5, and this is actually adoption of the agenda. One thing I wanted to do, and this is actually where we might actually need the city attorney, but one thing I wanted to do, because we do have staff here from the county for item 12.1, I wanted to ask my council members, and if this is something I can do, is it possible for us to do item 12.1 before we do item 10, before we do our ordinance 10.1, and then just switch back to the 12 discussion item action items? If everybody's okay, is everybody okay with that? Sure. I just want to make sure I know the long days that county workers put in as well, so I want to make sure we get you guys on the road as quickly as possible as well. So I would say if we could adopt the agenda with that change in it.
I would move the agenda, moving agenda item 12.1 to before agenda item 10.1.
A second.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Gottberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Saragosa?
Aye. All right. Thank you all. I appreciate that. Okay, moving on to item 6, which are announcements and presentations to the public, and item 6.1, which are brief comments by the city council And I'll start with Councilmember Yarbrough.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Christmas parade was phenomenal. You guys missed a whole lot of fun. So anyway, no, great turnout, amazing amount of people. I think we had almost, 300 entries or something like that?
Yes.
It was crazy long. I want to say 2.5, 3 hours. So, but next year you guys might want to join me on the float. So, I mean, not saying I didn't have any fun by myself, but, you guys might want to actually, with the float that says city council.
David, thank you very much for being there for all of us through a variety of illnesses and previously scheduled events. We didn't get everybody else there, so thank you.
It was my pleasure.
Warren
Yeah,
as
no,
well,
Mr. Warren, actually, I think he kind of did the public a disservice because he handed me a karaoke machine to have on the float. So hopefully not too many people actually heard me singing. So.
That's great. Thank you, David. Vice Mayor, no.
Yeah, my husband and I helped with the Christmas trees on Highway 50 like we do every year. That's just a great thing that the whole community loves. Michael and I attended the tree lighting. It was another great event, just packed as usual. Had a lot of positive reviews on the tree down at the bell tower. People were really enjoying that. I attended the Transit Authority audit review. I was sick for the parade. I'm sorry, David. And attended the Public Art Master Plan meeting yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Karichi.
As he mentioned, I was not at the parade, and I feel really bad because I have not missed many parades. That's one of my favorite things. I don't want people to think I hate Christmas or parades. I love both.
That was the rumor.
But I literally, my wife said, I need to go somewhere, and she's getting close to retirement, and it's not pretty. And so I said, okay, let's go. And I scheduled the time, and then I looked at the calendar, and I went, darn it. And it just so happened that I was driving to the coast on Sunday. But Dave did a good job. I heard he held it up really well. I suggested you just grab people and put them on the float and tell them that they were the city council. A lot of people wouldn't know. So it would have been okay. Anyway, and that's it. Thank you.
I like that. It'd be like our what do you have that when you're like a despot? You have like your doppelgangers that are out there. Yes. Councilmember Gottberg.
I have done tonight.
Thank you. Myself, yes, I went. It was always fun for the Christmas tree lighting. We had a great time there. I too was sick unfortunately, for the parade, so I missed it. Although my wife did go for both the decorating, the Christmas trees on Highway 50, as well as to the float. So I did have a little bit. I had half the family there enjoying the festivities. So again, I'm looking forward to being there next year. I do. The parade is always so much fun. I mean, I love seeing all of town come out and from everywhere around, rain or shine. And this year, luckily, it was no rain. So I think we had some the day before. But so thank you, everybody. And again, I want to thank for both the parade and for the tree lighting. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody that were donors, that were volunteers, that went into leadership positions to help make all these things happen. There's a lot of work that goes into those efforts, including from city staff to volunteers to everybody else. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, everybody. And again, and with all the people that shows up, it just shows how much the city of Placerville and all the surrounding areas care about those events, and everyone looks forward to them. So thank you. Okay, so we will move to item 7, which is our consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. And yes, we have a very long, about 14 items on the consent agenda this evening. Does anybody have any questions? Because this is a longer one than usual. Seeing none, I will go ahead and open up items 7.1 through 7.14 for public comment. Thank you.
Sue Rodman, member of the Measure H and L Committee and proud Placerville citizen. And I'm really glad to see the bridge and the sidewalks on over Hangtown Creek on Placerville Drive are moving forward. I think this is something we really need to do. That's probably the ugliest bridge in town and the most dangerous.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, any other comments on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment on the consent calendar, and I'll bring it back for either further discussion or a motion.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Gottberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough,
Aye.
Vice Mayor No,
Aye.
Mayor Saragosa.
Aye.
you.
All right, thank you, everybody. All right, let me move to item 8, which are public comments on non-agendized items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda, but that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. And I will go ahead to item 8.1, which is oral communication. So if anyone has any items they'd like to discuss that are not on the agenda, please come forward. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mark Acuna here representing the Placerville Fire Safe Council. I would like to take this opportunity, since I'm here for another item, to update the council and the public on our efforts for our March 23rd, 2024 Wildfire Safety Day event. The most recent positive recommendations that I can share with you is that through the good merits of Chief Maurice Johnson of El Dorado Hills Fire Department, he has guaranteed us his staff and their wildfire simulation table. And that is huge, and I can assure you that we will have an excellent viewing situation for this next year so that we can watch various parts of our neighborhoods burn. It's a very effective demonstration. So great thanks to Chief Johnson down in El Dorado Hills. And also, a very hot, controversial topic, I know I'm a victim of it right now, is we will have a representative from the California Department of Insurance, Mary Beth Kowalski, who was at the event last year, is going to return again next year, and we're excited to have her. We have added her to our list of presenters because, as I'm sure we all have ongoing questions with what's going on with our various requirements and what we're going to have to do. So I'll just add that the planning committee is working very hard, and we are excited to have an even better presentation. David Zielinski, our president, and I both hope to exceed 500 residents stopping by during the day. So thank you for your ongoing support.
Great. Thank you, Mark, for the update. Appreciate it. Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comments portion. Do we have any written comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, we did not pull any items from the consent calendar, and we moved around the agenda items a little bit, so we're going to go to item 12.1 under discussion and action items, and that is to consider a request from El Dorado County to implement a trip to green for one night in the month of February to accommodate construction on the Mosquito Road Bridge. And Cleve has this presentation for us this evening, and Ms. McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, we have representatives of El Dorado County here tonight. I'll start off, just give a brief description, and then I'm going to invite them to come up and talk about this and explain the need for it and go into a little more detail. And then we'll come back at the end with some recommendations. And you've got some questions in the report that I've had a good conversation with them. I think we're comfortable where we're going, but just want to bring those up. So. On Friday, December 1st, staff was contacted by EDCTC, the Transportation Commission, actually, Woodrow Deloria, who's also here tonight, asking, he had been asked to set up a meeting to consider this request, which will allow freer flow of the trucks, cement trucks that will be coming in to assist with the pour that they're doing, a major pour on the new Mosquito Road Bridge that's under construction. And so we met with them. We had a good discussion on it, talked about various issues and where that might go. Our interim city engineer, Melissa McConnell, was not there at that meeting, but did have other conversations with county staff, and her and I together put this staff report together to look at what things to be concerned about and how we could accommodate this. And as always, we like to work, and we think we do always work cooperatively with the county, and we want to continue that relationship. And if there's something we can assist with, we think it's responsible for us to do that. So at this time, I'm going to invite the county up. I know we have John and
Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Greatly appreciate you advancing our item ahead of schedule. My staff, contractor, and EDCDC, yeah, greatly appreciate that. So I just want to state that what your city manager stated. El Dorado County embarked on a multi-jurisdictional regional project about a year and a half ago with the Mosquito Bridge project. And now we are reaching a pivotal part and task of that project where collaboration with the city will be beneficial for, we believe, not only the city, the county, the residents of this area. And so we wanted to come here and give you some of the details as to why we're doing this. I'm here just to basically moral support for my staff and to let you know that I'm committed to making sure that we work together collaboratively so that, there's a commitment from the county. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to my Deputy Director of Engineering, John Killing, who's going to describe the details of the aspect for the timing. So.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, John.
Good evening. Thank you, Raphael. Good evening, everyone. And like Raphael said, thank you so much for the consideration of moving our item up on the agenda. It's appreciated. My name is John Kaling. I'm with the County Department of Transportation. I just want to start with a very brief overview of the project, what we've done so far, and why we're asking for this one-night trip to Green. So the Mosquito Bridge project started construction in the summer of 22. The first year was basically spent putting roads into work sites on the steep canyon walls and carving notches into the steep canyon walls so we could build bridge footings and columns. That work of carving those notches in is complete, and we're now working on the pilings that are going to support the columns. Once those are complete, we have to pour footings upon which the columns will rest. And the footing on the south side of the river, so on the Placerville side of the river, it's I should have brought a tape measure into this room. It's 59 feet by 62 feet by 9 feet deep. It's about 1,100 yards. It's going to take about 120 concrete trucks. So right now that footing pour is scheduled for mid-February, and there are a few reasons why we think Trip to Green is a good idea and why we're asking the city to consider this tonight. Safety is an obvious priority for everyone. With this in place, the pour will go faster and we'll have less time commingling concrete trucks with traffic on the roads. Also, there will be a lot fewer decision points. That's a traffic engineering word that I picked up along the way in my career. Conflict points for drivers to have to make decisions about things when everything's green. That's a lot easier. We have to make this pour, this concrete pour, this operation has to happen in a continuous manner. We talked to our engineer about splitting the pour up into 2 separate pours, which would be much more manageable. But the engineer told us that their analysis shows that any kind of joint in the footing, so we basically want to pour half the footing, come back a couple of days later and pour the next half of it. But any joint in the footing is a deal breaker from a stress concentration perspective. There's basically so much load coming down from the columns onto the footings. They don't want any kind of construction joint or cold joint in the concrete. They want it to all be poured in one pour. So if we have 120 trucks and they come through the city on Highway 50, and let's just say about 100 of them, just to make the math easy for me, 100 of them get delayed 2 minutes. That's 200 minutes. You know, that's what is that? It's over 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So you can see how it multiplies real quickly with these 3 stoplights in town, these 3 traffic signals. And if they're delayed enough, then we start looking at cold joints in the footing, and that becomes a structural problem for the bridge, like I talked about earlier. So we reached out to, well, first we had a discussion in the county, at the county level, And after that, we cleared that, then we got with EDCTC Executive Director Deloria, and like Mr. Morris said, he arranged a meeting with the city, with the mayor, with Mr. Clarici, and we kind of talked through, and Supervisor Wendy Thomas was there also from our side. And we talked through some issues and decided to try to get here on the 12th. And my appreciation again to Mr. Morris and Ms. McConnell for getting the staff report put together and getting us on the agenda tonight. Our contractor prefers a Friday night trip to Green. But obviously, the city's going to know better than us what night would be optimal for you and the residents of Placerville. So this is the second step. If we receive a yes vote on this from the city council, the next step would be to continue our engagement with Caltrans. We've already kind of started talking to them, but we've made it known to Caltrans that without a yes from the city council, this won't be going forward. So that would be our next step, is to go talk to Caltrans and find out if there are any changes, that Caltrans might want. I'd also be very interested to hear if there's any changes from previous trips to Green that the city might want. And so if the city wants changes and we can get Caltrans to buy off on it from an operational perspective, we'd be happy to make that happen. So again, we want the concrete pour to be at night, not during the day. We're not talking about multiple days of trip to Green. We're talking about one single night, one single 12-hour shift, if you will. And the numbers we've been throwing around are 9 or 10 o'clock at night to 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. That concludes my presentation. I tried to keep it brief, and I'm happy to answer your questions at this time.
Great. Thank you, John. And I appreciate you walking everybody through the process here and the timing that's needed to make sure that this is a one continuous pour. So I want to go ahead and open it up to the council if there's any questions.
I do have a question, just to clarify. When we had our meeting, originally it was 6 to 6. And now, because when you say 6 to 6 and then you say Friday, I'm like going, that's a problem, especially in February. It could be quite a bit of traffic going eastbound because of snow and presumably if there's snow and skiing and stuff. But if it's at 9, from 9 to 9, so is that kind of the number now we're settling on? Is it 9 p.m. to 9 a.m.? Because then Friday might actually work if that's the contractor's preference.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That came to mind because I was like, Friday otherwise would suck. But yeah. Okay.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, if I may, please.
Sure.
One important point I forgot to mention. We're in winter, and right now it's scheduled for mid-February, but the rain may force us to have a later pour.
Sure.
Right.
So we would propose some manner of public outreach every couple of weeks or every, maybe start once a month, and then as we get closer, start, making more public outreach as we get closer to the date and we get more certainty with which the actual date of the pour will happen. Because we can't, I hope you understand, we can't commit to a certain date right now given the weather.
Absolutely. And we know, I mean, it's going to be weather permitting, and we know February, it can rain or snow any day. Right. So
I guess for the rest of the council's edification, one of the things we talked about doing that would be a departure from the traditional trip to Green would be to allow right-hand turns at Canal Street, because on the original trip to Green, that was blocked off. So you'd be able to go right in and right out. You won't be able to cross the highway, obviously, and you won't be able to make a left-hand turn across the highway because that's what trip to Green is. But you will be able to make those right-hand turns at Canal, which I think will make it a little easier for folks that live on that particular street to kind of deal with. We also talked about, and this is kind of an inside baseball thing, but since we're talking about it, is to at Mosquito, because Mosquito Road will be the exit where they'll be going in and out. The trucks will be going in and out, taking all the westbound traffic and moving it to the fast lane, leaving that on-ramp lane because it's a real tight turn, and if even in an empty concrete truck, it's still real heavy and it's a slow acceleration. So we chatted about a bunch of different things just for folks that obviously weren't there at the meeting with us. So And then there was a few other things, but those were kind of some of the highlights.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in. I appreciate the 9 p.m. a lot better, too. It'll have less of an impact on our businesses. Everyone can go to dinner, and then that'll kind of start after the dinner hours. So I think that works for our town a lot better.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none at this point, we're going to go ahead and open up for, John, do you have any other?
Real quick, I just
Yes.
want to say, with respect to the additional turns, the additional right-in, right-out, we would have no problem with that, obviously, if Ms. McConnell is good with it, and then we got to get Caltrans buy-off, like I said earlier. Okay, but
Yep.
we're totally on board with that, too.
All contingent on Caltrans saying, yeah, yay. In addition to the one lane on Mosquito, which makes a lot of sense, but.
Even at midnight, there's
Yeah.
guys coming westbound on that highway, and they're hot footing it through town, and all of a sudden they got 3 concrete trucks in front of them. It could get ugly.
Yep. All right, well, stick around. We'll go ahead and open up for any public comment on this item and then move on from there. But thank you all. So at this point then, we'll go ahead and open up this item for public comment. Good evening, Supervisor.
Good evening, Placerville City Council and staff. Wendy Thomas, District 3 Supervisor, and really want to echo our staff's comments and thank you for your, quick turnaround and consideration on this item and for being a collaborative partner on this once-in-a-lifetime legacy project for our county that's really quite exciting, but obviously requires some Herculean efforts at times. We also recognize that our ask tonight is asking, for the city of Placerville to bear an impact, whether it's the residents that live on Mosquito that will have a lot of concrete trucks driving past them, or the residents or the businesses. And in our collaborative meetings in talking through this, we also recognize that you went to great lengths to pinch pennies and to find the resources to pave Mosquito Road, and that it's brand new, fresh pavement. And while these trucks are going to be legal limits and on a legal road, we also recognize that it's taken a lot for you to get there, and we want to be a good partner too. So in working with Woody Deloria of the El Dorado County Transportation Commission, we have some ideas that might help just express our gratitude for the impacts that the city of Placerville will bear on this. And we really appreciate you being a collaborative partner on this with us, because we couldn't do it without you. So with that, I'd love for Woody to come up and talk about the ideas we had.
Thank you, Wendy.
Supervisor Thomas, good evening, council members. So Woody Deloria, the Executive Director of the El Dorado County Transportation Commission. And you may be wondering, why is the commission involved in this kind of collaboration to help facilitate the conversation? We actually don't have any funding programmed to the Mosquito Bridge project. It's fully funded through the Highway Bridge Program, a federal program. But we are responsible for helping the city and the county in project delivery so that we can make sure to retain all of our funding going forward, and also be successful in securing funding from the feds and the state for other projects in the region. So to mitigate for the impacts to Mosquito Road, we have currently no funding identified or programmed, but we do have exchanged Service Transportation Block Grant Program funds that the county and the city get every year, and that's based on the formula allocation, and that can be discussed should mitigation be needed for impacts from the heavy trucks. That would be a regionally significant project that the city, the county, and the commission could jointly discuss and identify funding for. Of course, the commission at that time would have to consider that and vote on that for approval. So I'm not committing anything to that in the future, but that is an approach that we would want to take to help mitigate the impacts, mitigate the risk of delivery failure on this project. It is a massive project. It's incredibly expensive, likely the most expensive bridge project we'll see in our lifetimes here in El Dorado County. And to help mitigate that risk, I think would benefit the region and our project delivery success. So be happy to answer any questions on the funding side.
Thank you, Woody. And any questions?
My memory from when we've had the free on green is that there's been costs the city's incurred for public works staff, for police department, and we've had contractors come in to help with traffic. So would these mitigation factors that are discussed include recouping the costs that would be incurred for accommodating these folks on this one night for this great project? Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. We'll get that question answered.
Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville. Don't know how many people have ever been over the old wooden Mosquito Bridge. It's an amazing piece of engineering and construction, but it cannot handle big trucks. And if there were a fire in that neighborhood, getting people out would be unmitigated disaster. So I am really happy to see this bridge come. I think it adds a whole measure of safety to all the people who live in that area. So if we need to do a trip to Green, do it. No big deal.
Thank you, Sue. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. There was a really good, oh, yeah, John, go ahead, go. Yeah, no, come on, yeah.
This is how we do it at the county.
Yes, yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
No, I was just going to, regarding Mr. Smith's question regarding cost, where the contractor is absorbing the cost of the traffic control, and basically we're looking to have no cost to the city on this at all. There will be some time that I have to coordinate with Ms. McConnell. I don't think that's going to be significant. It's basically just going to be me pestering her with some questions about what happened when happened when you did this, what happened when you did that, you know. So that's my intent. I hope there's no need for law enforcement.
Understood. No, thank you. And I think that's been our assessment too. I don't know, Cleve, if you wanted to make any comments to that as well in terms of
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what John said. We discussed this, all of these questions that I have in my staff report, John and I discussed those and went over them. And we're comfortable, we're going to provide them all the information that we have from our engineering department on how we did the pilot program, Trip to Green. And it'll be up to them to implement that. Probably will be some questions that'll come back to engineering, but I don't see it being extensive. And I did put in here, you know, if we did have something that comes out before we put a lot of staff time into it, we would talk to them about reimbursement for that. And I think they're open to that if something comes up, so.
I have one question for County. How much is this bridge going to cost?
Its total project cost is over $100 million. The bid price is just about $70 million.
Thank you.
that is definitely the most expensive bridge we're going to have in El Dorado County.
Probably.
All right. Any other questions for John or for any of our county partners? All right. Seeing none, John, thank you very much.
Thanks again for your consideration.
And we'll go ahead and close public comments, bring it back to the council for further discussion or motion.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, great. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Calcilmember Gottberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Saragosa?
Aye. All right, thank you. All right, well, let's go get Caltrans on board. Thank you all for coming out this evening, and thank you for being great partners. We really appreciate it. Okay, we'll give it a minute here just to switch over. Okay, we're going to go back now to ordinances, which is item 10 and item 10.1, which is considered the second reading of an ordinance amending Title VII of the Placerville Municipal Code, Health and Sanitation, adding Chapter 17, Private Sewer Lateral Ordinance to the City Code. And Mr. Rivas has his report for us.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'll just let you know that this staff report will be much shorter than the one given on November 14th. So let me start by just giving an introduction to the ordinance. This private sewer lateral ordinance establishes regulations and enforcement for the inspection, testing, repair, replacement, and ongoing maintenance of private sewer laterals, or PSLs, resulting in the issuance of what we're going to call a Certificate of Lateral Compliance, COLC. This ordinance applies to all common private sewer laterals and individual private sewer service connections that ultimately connect to the city's public sewer collection system. Nothing in this ordinance applies to the public sewer system. This ordinance has been before the council quite a few times. It was before the council back on January the 9th of 2018 for first reading. Then again on August 9th of 2022 for first reading. The council directed staff at that time to hold a public workshop, which was held on May 24th of 2023. Following the workshop, the revised ordinance was brought back to the city council for first reading on October the 24th of this year. Following the workshop, the ordinance was brought forward to the council on October the 24th for the first reading. The council then decided to table the item and appoint a council subcommittee to work with staff on addressing concerns and finalizing the ordinance. Council members No and Councilmember Yarborough were selected to hold meetings with staff and bring back a revised ordinance to the council. 2 meetings were held, one on October the 31st, second one on November the 7th. Both council members No and Yarborough did make changes to the draft ordinance, making it more acceptable. The ordinance was then brought back to the council for a first reading on November 14th of 2023. The ordinance was the council then at that meeting continued to have concerns about the ordinance and provided staff with a recess to make further modifications for the council to consider. These changes made to that previous draft that was considered by the council on November 14th are shown in your staff report as underline and strikeout, and that's the ordinance that's currently before you. The council then introduced and waived the first reading of the ordinance as amended on November 14th. So subsequent to that, staff would like to make some recommended modifications to the ordinances currently before you. Mind you, these changes will not change any meaning of the ordinance whatsoever. It's just some changes sort of to clarify and make things a little bit more readable. So the first change is we want to change the reference date on the last whereas, and that's on page 1 of the ordinance, and we want to change the date from November the 14th to read, I'm sorry, to change it from December 12th to November 14th. Second change, we would like to reference, and this is in section 7-17-B-5B, and that's on page 8. We want to change that reference then from 7-17-6A1 to 7-17-B5. And then the third change, it'll make sense why we made that change of the reference. We want to move the underlined sentence from 7-17-6A1, which is on page 10, to a new subsection then under 7-17-5B. That would then become 7-17-5B5. So nothing has changed. We just feel that that particular sentence is describing a more of a performance rather than a trigger to what's triggering a CLLC. So that's why we made those changes. Doesn't change anything. So with that, staff is recommending that the council waive the second reading of an ordinance amending Title VII of the Placerville Municipal Code under the Health and Sanitation section, adding Chapter 17, Private Sewer Lateral Ordinance, and then adopt the ordinance. That concludes staff's report. Be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you very much, Pierre. Thank you for all the work on this. I know this has not been an easy one. So with that, I will go ahead and open it up for any questions. All right, not seeing any questions. We'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. I know we have some.
Good evening. I'm John Sikora, Placerville resident.
Good evening.
Last 16 years. Am I on the mic? Okay, got it. I'm not going to try to repeat what I submitted to you in writing, and I apologize for keeping you up all night trying to read it, but I'm going to stand by what I said there. I'm not going to repeat that. But I did notice that in this packet, you indicate that you crossed out verbiage that's not from the past draft, it's not the current one. There's none of that. This whole thing has to go back so you can see really what was there. At the last meeting, and I haven't seen the minutes, there was a handful of items that were added to this, and I'm not going to read that because it's going to eat up my time, but for those who are here, you know what I'm talking about. If that's not in the minutes, it should be. So I don't know if that's objectionable after the fact, but just know that that is an inconsistency. It gives rise to, again, what's going on here? I mean, it's like, I'm not trying to insult anybody, but it's hard not to with the way this thing's been thrown together, because whoever's point person on this has totally lost control of it. This whole project needs to be run through in a straightforward fashion. If I did this when I was working, I wouldn't have had a job. I won't get into that. But this is the kind of stuff where you have language that's being deleted. You have no clue what's being deleted or what was added in. When the language was added in at the last meeting, I don't know if that's in the minutes or not, but that language that was added in that your lawyer put together, was that in the draft that was being crossed out? We have no way of knowing. This whole thing needs to be set back and take a good look at. If you read my comments, one thing I really underscore is don't be in such a rush to rush into problems. You have a huge agenda in front of you with more problems being created every time you turn around trying to modify things. And again, I will thank you for making the changes you did, but why weren't those changes made beforehand? They were common sense changes that it shouldn't take the public to show you where there are issues in this proposal. If it's a team effort, then let's try to get that team a little more organized, because this whole process comes out like a shotgun. It's a shotgun approach, and there's still no basis for it. In the courts, they would say you don't have standing. I'm questioning what kind of standing you have here. When you have to go back to the last century to find an issue to raise for going forward on this, the smoke test, this kind of starts looking like smoke and mirrors to me. I mean, this is not something that has been put out. I've asked for responses at the last meeting in particular. Didn't hear one. Didn't hear anything at all about what kind of funding. Have you gone to our congressman and asked him to help us get federal funding? The infrastructure bill's got money exactly for this kind of work. Not to come out of citizens' pockets, but for this kind of work. So and again, I've got a lot of stuff I could ask you about, but I only get 3 minutes for a monologue and no dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. I think there were significant changes made that represent improvements. So a lot of the suggestions that were made at the last meeting 1 month ago were incorporated in the present draft. However, there are a number of concerns. For example, it seems like when you have a problem with one portion of a sewer line, it should be limited for responsibility to that person's property lines. So if there's property problems on my sewer line, I should be responsible. It shouldn't be shared by 8 other parcels. So that's one concern. Now that's just out of consideration for the other parties. I'd also point out that right now I could go on to sewer lines that the city already has and not be part of the private sewer line, because previously, 50 to 80 years ago, there were 2 large reservoirs right in front of the property, so you couldn't go straight down. If I hook on to those city lines, which would be a very short distance, am I going to have to pay $60,000 for hookup fees when I'm already hooked up? So those are things that need to be clarified in it. But most importantly, it's the issue of an appeal process. When I raised this, which has been every time over the last 3 years, the direction was given to the staff that provided an answer. But if you look at this ordinance, there's nothing in it for an appeal. Something that is this important seems like there should be. So at the very least, some language that's very simple, like what you have for planning commission decisions, like an aggrieved party can file an appeal or a hearing before the city council, just like you have for matters that come before the planning commission. Or if you have an ordinance over pole signs, you have a right to appeal to the city council. It seems like some simple language like that should be included. Now, I appreciate all the changes that were made in the last month, but remember the Brown Act is a minimum of 3 days, a minimum. And if you let us know just 3 days or so before, we can't, the public, be of much help to you. I don't know what damage could possibly happen, what kind of lawsuit is going to be filed in the next 3 weeks that would pose a problem for having it come back next month and have a lot of these suggestions that have been by Soroka and Mike Drobish, because there's a lot of clarifying language that could be added. I don't want to go over my 3 minutes, but most crucially, it's this idea of an appeal process. For something that is so important, that has such significant consequences for something like 80 properties in town or 80 sewer lines, it seems like you should have that included. Again, that kind of simple language. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirk.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mark Acuna, city resident and one-time property owner on Coleman Street. First of all, I would like to thank the council and staff for all the hard work that they've done on this issue. I know I was involved in it many years when I was on the council. I would have been here last meeting, but through some of the same concerns with the changing of the language and making some improvements, addressing some very real concerns about private sewer systems, I congratulate you on coming through it to this point. I also want to thank you for taking the time to read my email that outlined the project that I was involved in at a time when I was not on the council, and kind of go into the realities of the private sewer systems that do exist and the fact that they are a good thing. I think from a lot of, one thing I've observed is there's a negative on having a private sewer system. And I think I could add, very clearly show that they are very much positives, and they were designed with the best economies and at the time when they were put in. To give you a clear example and to share with the public, the project that I was involved in was the installation of a sewer in 1935 to a new home that was built on Coleman Street as an accessory drilling, of all things. That line and the adjoining property owners got together and installed a 4-inch clay bell and spigot sewer line, 6-foot sections. All the services to the homes were cast iron. All of that was still in service until 2015, when an unpermitted dwelling that was built sometimes in the 50s had been built on top of the sewer line and eventually squashed it and rendered it unserviceable. The homes in 1935 that connected to that sewer system were all on outhouses. So we took 5 Victorian homes, and they all converted and received in 1935 modern indoor plumbing. That evidence is still very clear in the neighborhood if you just know where to look. And if I was to go ahead and design a project again to serve those homes, I would use exactly the same trench route that they used in 1935. It avoids solid rock, it avoids street trenching, it avoids the need for sewer lift pumps. Rather than trying to bring the sewage up to Lincoln Street or up to Clay, you send it down the hill. So kudos to the folks that built it. And as you've heard, there are ongoing issues with these things. I want to point out one of the things that was really very important, and I would ask the council to consider maybe looking at developing some guidelines that would incorporate the success that this project enjoyed. It began with the city manager's office after we had had Public Works come out with equipment that was sufficient enough to actually go down and camera 200 and 300 feet away from where the known cleanout was. And I should mention that for 25 years that I'm aware of, 2 property owners maintained annually this sewer line that 5 other homes were using. We didn't realize it until we all stood in front of the sewer cleanout and sewage came from an unknown location, and there was nobody in the houses to flush. That was literally how we discovered that this was a multiple service. So it took cooperation of the city engineers, the city finance department was involved in guaranteeing that the payments would be paid. It took Gordon Vicini and his firm to come out and design and work with the neighbors. So, but it would not have happened if the various city department heads had not been willing to sit down, examine the exact situation, and then we developed a specific guideline to create a project. 7 property owners entered into private agreements with Vicini Inc., and they also made sure that those payments got paid back. So again, congratulations on where we are. I would, again, be happy to be a part of any future discussion to use that as an example. The old neighborhoods, we all know that they're out there, and they were all state-of-the-art at one time. I think we have to realize that. It went where it went for a reason. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville, not since 1935, but for a fairly long time, and member of the Measure H, Measure L committee. And I have some comments today about this. I think we do need to address our sewer system. If you look, the most important difference between the world today and 150 years ago isn't airplane flights or nuclear power or the internet. It's lifespan. We used to live 35 to 40 years on average in the United States. Now we live almost 80. So why are you not dead yet? How did we go from the miseries of the past to our current expectation of long and healthy lives? Most people credit medical advances, but historians wouldn't do that. One reason is the timing. Most of the effective medical treatments we recognize today as saving our lives have been available only since World War II. But the steepest increase in life expectancy occurred from the late 1800s to the mid-1900s. The biggest lifesaver in history may be clean water, responsible for over 1/2 of the overall reduction in mortality. Finally, understanding that sewage and drinking water needed to be completely separated happened after we had cholera outbreaks, and they finally traced it in London to a water pump next to a leaky sewer. Some of the biggest public works in the late 1900s involved separating clean water from sewage. The job of cleaning up that water supply was hard. And some historians now attribute 1/2 of the overall reduction in mortality, 2/3 of the reduction in child mortality, and 3/4 of the reduction in infant mortality in the United States to clean water, possibly making it the biggest lifesaver in history. So what we do with our sewage system and our ordinance is important. It's part of job one. Water and sewer need to be Placerville's job one. And Placerville has to step up and realize that ignoring problems never makes them go away. They usually just get worse over time. And private sewer laterals are not something that will fix themselves. Staff needs to determine the location and the status of all these private sewer laterals. Where a private sewer lateral is located in a city easement, isn't it in effect a city lateral? I think it would be a good idea to dedicate them to the city and incorporate them in the cities. These private laterals are de facto part of the public system because they feed into the public system. Any line that covers multiple properties and feeds into the public system should be, and really is, part of the public system. How to accomplish that's the question. Can there be some contribution from Measure H and L? Because Measures H and L were designed for existing systems and specifically state they cannot be used for new construction, it's been interpreted that they could not be used for these so-called private systems. However, these private laterals are also part of the existing system. I ask our legal counsel, could Measure H and L be used to bring existing private sewer laterals serving more than 2 properties up to code and annexed into the city system? While these are called private sewer lines, they still present a risk to public health and safety. So they can affect all of us by affecting the public system. Maybe the city needs to annex them using eminent domains for public health and safety purposes. Those are my comments. Oops.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion and bring it back to City Council. Obviously, I just want to say off the top, I mean, from the emails to the phone calls to city, talking to people on the street, I don't think I had one really conversation where it wasn't a very productive one and some really good ideas and things for us to think about. So I really appreciate all of the comments, the public comments, and the communications that have come in over the weeks. I was not here for the middle, I guess, conversation on this. I think I was out sick, or I was in LA with my mom. She was sick as well, so somebody was sick. So I just wanted to say thank you on the front end for that, and acknowledge that with everybody as we go into further discussions. I know there was some items brought up in terms of hookup fees and an appeals process. I just wanted to see if staff had any comments on those 2 items in that case, of somebody that maybe would be connecting, I guess, into the public lines or into our lines that maybe are currently on a private sewer lateral now. If there would be an additional hookup fees, and then if for some reason the person didn't want or didn't like what our building official, or when they came out to look at it, is there an appeals process in place? I mean, I think there's one that's always exists because anyone can always come to us to make a case, but I also could see us memorializing something as well. So I just wanted to see what staff thought on those 2.
Mayor Zaragoza, I think you asked 3 different questions.
Could be.
If I missed one, go ahead and just let me know. I think the first question had to do with fees.
Yes.
Basically, with respect, because staff also received some questions regarding the fees. So with regards to, say, when the staff is doing an inspection for, say, the COLC, we have a $95 fee that's already in our fee schedule. So I did see an email that was pretty strong in its content in terms of where we need to go back and spend months or maybe years determining what the fee is. No, that's not the case. This would be under our building fee schedule. It'd be the typical $95 inspection fee that we've been charging for many, many years. I think another question you asked was, is there a fee, a connection fee? No, there would be no
connection fee because they're already connected to the system. So there's no additional fee. So if somebody comes in and they pull a building permit, a plumbing permit, if you will, to fix or repair the line or to connect to the city main, if they want to remove themselves from a common lateral, then that would be under the building permit. And so the building department, the building division fee schedule would apply to that building permit as it would with any other permit. So there's no hidden fees or something new here. Trying to think of, you had another.
Appeals.
Oh, the
process.
appeals. Yeah, the appeals, there's no real appeal process here. What I see is two different things that could happen. So if you look at page 14 of the ordinance, and that's 7-17-13 under enforcement. So if there's raw sewage, say due to a private line that's broken, well, what's the appeal? Staff would immediately contact the owner and take enforcement action because that is an immediate health and safety threat. Either the homeowner fixes the situation or the city gets involved and the city affects the repair and then puts a lien on the property. I don't think there's any real appeal at that stage. I don't know what somebody would be appealing other than pointing the finger at some other neighbor because they think maybe it's not emanating from their property. But I think we'd be able to ascertain where it's coming from. It's happened quite a bit in the past. So the other situation for an appeal would be when they're pulling a building permit. If an applicant disagrees or if their licensed plumber disagrees with the findings or the position of the building official, well, then there is an appeal process, and that would be with the Building Board of Appeals. And that's established in the current city code. So in other words, this ordinance is really addressing private sewer common laterals. What are the triggers for requiring a COLC? That was the whole purpose of this, was to be more proactive in bringing those into the fold, if you will, so that we're aware of them, we get them fixed because of our I&I issue that we discussed at length over the last couple of meetings. So we do have the enforcement section. We also referenced, again, that's on page 14, where it references chapter, it's City Code Title I, chapters 4, 4A, and 4B. Those all have to do with the due process if someone is not complying. There's the whole due process in there. But I think it's a little bit different here because we're dealing with raw sewage as opposed to somebody with an illegal sign kind of thing. It's violating the code. So I hope that answers the question. I think our current code, the current city code, does provide for ample due process and appeal in the right circumstances.
Understood. Thank you. The one other item, and this was a different speaker, but the thought of, and I had this conversation as well, Mr. Acuna have brought this up, in the thought of having a procedural, like a how-to, if you will, manual for folks as they're going through this process so they know exactly what the expectations are from the city. I mean, the code has it, but I understand the need to have something in more plain English, for lack of a better phrase, that just kind of shows you, all right, here's the steps that you have to go through to do things. I know it's more involved than that, but didn't know if you had comments on that. I did think that was kind of a good thing for us to have in place, just so that there's no ambiguity about what the expectations are for owners of properties or people potentially buying a property.
Yeah, that's a very good comment and a very good idea. I will be working with the building official, and we will develop a how-to or a procedure when someone finds themselves in this kind of situation where they are party to a common sewer lateral, something goes wrong. What are then the steps that would be the expectation the city would have to them to go through with their neighbors and getting that repaired? We will be doing that. We do that with most of our ordinances. For example, we have a how-to for ADUs. We have a how-to for keeping of chickens. Usually with a lot of our new ordinances, we do develop how-tos and handouts and that kind of a thing. So we hope to have something that will be prepared, that will be, very simple English on what happens, on how to implement this ordinance, and we'll have it on our website as well.
Thank you. And there was also a comment, and this is really, Pierre, I love your comments as well first, but I also want to hear from my colleagues in terms of sort of the idea that, whether H&L could be potentially used, and the idea that because these private sewer laterals, some of them potentially on multiple properties, are really a sort of a de facto sewer system that are out there, because that's how they were designed, 80 years ago. There really wasn't like a city code to figure out in a city, city pipes that were taking care of all these things. And so did we, is there like almost an inheritance on some of these? And it's an interesting idea. Because one of the things, and I know I brought this up the first time we had this discussion, is at least from some of the cities that I saw in the Bay Area, they not only did they have considerable public outreach when they adopted their private sewer lateral ordinances, but they also had funding available, whether it was I think for the most part it was a loan. Some people actually had, I think, some hardship funds that were available to folks. We all know that there are a lot of people on fixed incomes here. There are people that maybe can't afford some things. So, that is, and I'm not saying we do that. I'm just saying that's something that was out there from richer cities than we are, but they were there. So I just wanted to get comments on that. And again, this is a policy idea for council, but I also wanted to hear what staff might have to think about that as well.
Mayor, I'd like to start by saying that if a group of homeowners that are currently served by a common sewer lateral, if they come in, pull a permit, and they're able to provide an easement for that line to the city if one doesn't already exist, but typically would be an easement to the city, and that sewer lateral then is built to city standards, the city can accept that into its system and then relieve the property owners of the burden of maintaining that common sewer lateral, so that the homeowner then is only responsible to their building sewer from the building to that common lateral. So that is possible. With regards to Measure H&L, I really don't know the start with that, if those funds could be made available to providing either a loan or monies available to homeowners to fix and bring those private sewer laterals up to par. That's a good question to ask. But I'm able to answer that. Certainly, if there's any federal funds or state funds available, we'd be more than happy to identify those and make application to those, because some of these lines are lengthy and very expensive to replace.
Understood. Thank you. All right. So I guess, did I miss anything in terms of public questions for my colleagues that we didn't get clarification from staff?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, there was one. Our congressperson does not do earmarks.
No, our congressperson is going to be of no value to you.
So there isn't,
he doesn't believe in
a
this.
chance from a federal standpoint. Grant funds, yes.
Yeah.
We would go after them ourselves, but there
Right.
wouldn't be a possibility from our local congressional representative.
Nope.
U.S. Senate, potentially.
Yeah, but not that guy.
Yes, City Manager Morris.
Just a couple of comments. One, referring to the policies and procedures, that is actually in the ordinance that the director will prepare those policy and procedures. That's required of us to do that. The second thing, along those lines, a question came up of, did we try to recover funds from the floods and et cetera last year? And Mr. Warren can speak to that better than me, but yes, we did. We did apply for funds. We've been very active with county OES or state OES and et cetera to recover what funds we could from those. I will say it was not a large amount, but we did recover funds. What we were eligible for was quite a process going through with FEMA to look at what we can recover, and what we could, we did recover those funds.
Thank you. All right, so discuss away.
You read a lot, and we got some comments. Thank you very much. This idea that this is something that we're rushing. If anybody's read the timeline, does know that that's not happening. We're not just relying on the smoke test from 1990, whenever. We actually have real-time problems that our public works folks have to go out and address, and those have been happening up until, I don't know when the last time we had to address this, but they're up until fairly recently. So the idea that this is something that we don't deal with on a regular basis, or that we don't have a foundation of data to support what we're trying to do with this particular initiative is just isn't related to any facts. I have said this, I will say it again, because we get a lot of them, you're going to stop real estate transactions. I don't want to say this will never stop a real estate transaction, but in my experience, and I've now managed to talk to other people that have lived in other towns where they have these things. Like I said, with my mother's house, East Bay Mud, down in Crockett, down in the Bay Area, we had to sell it. We decided finally to sell it. She had passed. We got it scoped. We knew there was a problem with the sewer lateral, but we got it scoped. Because the house was 50 years old or so, even if it had been intact, they were going to make us at least line it. So we ended up having to line the sewer system. It did not stop our escrow. It took about 3 weeks, 4 weeks to get somebody in there, somebody to scope it. I can't speak to what's happening today, but we had it done. It did not delay the escrow. It did not delay the escrow. I think sometimes on another issue, so I don't really, and I'll comment about something else here in a moment to address some of these other concerns. We tend to think of these the private sewer laterals that have multiple outlets on them as being like somehow unique to everybody else's sewer lateral. Any house that feeds sewage into the sewer system has a private sewer lateral. It might just be one, like my house that I live in presently has one. The stuff comes out of the house, it goes into the ground. I can see the street, and I know where it's going, and it goes there. The portion of it that's on my property is a private sewer lateral. It belongs to me. And then it goes into the public sewer system. These are just more complicated versions of that. They all are there, but they're all private sewer laterals. I think we're kind of mixing, we tend to sort of conflate these issues. There's nothing wrong to having a private sewer lateral system. There's nothing wrong with it inherently. It was how they, as Mr. Acuna said, that's how they got some of the houses built. If you had houses and they were backed up from a property line and they all wanted to go downhill to the sewer, well, you had to go through somebody else's property, and then sometimes you wanted to connect. Our house, the house we used to live in on Myrtle, which I still own, is one of those. Our sewage line goes to the property line, and then it hooks into the property below me. Now, at some point, the property below me put in a very nice-looking lateral because it's lovely. And then I have improved mine to my property line, and now it's intact all the way out. I had a break, and then I had to have it scoped, and that's how I discovered all these things. I am against the idea of using H&L to do any of this work, except for the exception that if you've got one of these multi-layered systems, and you want to bring it up to current standards, great. It's kind of like a road adoption. Everybody, they talk about roads. Well, you bring the road up to standard, then the jurisdiction will take it. But they're not going to bring your road up to standard and then take it. And I think that's an important distinction here. I am foursquare against using H&L funds to fund things on private property. I would not expect them to do it for me. I don't expect to do it anywhere else in this town. If we want to come up with some stuff to help folks out, that's fine. And I know there are programs out there, and we should pursue that. The one thing that, though, in my discussions with Mr. Acuna, he's my neighbor, he lives down the road from me. I think that if we pass this in its current form, we should create some guidance on monitoring all this. We should know how many houses went into escrow, how many of those successfully navigated the system and came out the other side without any ill effect. Did we discover new private sewers laterals out there? Because we know that we have a handle on some, we don't know the extent of it. When we were talking about his little adventure on Coleman, one of the things that I think we should get on every one of these that we find is try to come up with not an as-built but a plan. Like there's 5 parcels. The thing goes up and it does like a tree. get an idea of where those are. As we're moving forward, gathering data, A, it'll be just good to have it, and B, when we do get to the thing where it's like, I'm buying a piece of property on a private sewer lateral, we can go, oh, you're on, if we happen to know about it, oh, you're on this one. This is what we think it looks like. You know, we're not going to etch it in granite, but, you know, at least we think we know what it looks like. So we can actually add to the database as we're moving forward, provide some guidance to staff to sort of collect this information. I think we need to do this. I think I've made that painfully obvious throughout this process. Those have been my observations. I think that a lot of the, you know, there's folks that are always going to predict disaster. My gut tells me that most of this is going to be fine. We're going to go through this, we're going to adopt this thing, sewers will get fixed progressively over time, the laterals will be improved on various properties, and we're going to be okay. But we should collect data, and we should have like a year from now, we can come back, if we pass this thing tonight, if this thing goes through, a year from now, we have a report from staff. How did it go? How did our adventure in sewer lateral land go? What were the ups, pluses and minuses, and if there are challenges, then we can address them. We're trying to address problems now, but you don't even know what they're going to be.
Right.
My humble opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Other comments? One thing, and part of this is because I was absent from the last meeting, but so I'm just trying to look at, and I don't even know if these exist. I'm sure they're probably somewhere, but let's just say there's 3 houses on a private sewer lateral. I'm the middle house. From what y'all agreed to last time, so am I only? I'm selling the house.
Yes.
I'm only responsible
Only
for,
on your property.
only on my property. So regardless of what
Yes.
what above or below me looks, or perpendicular or horizontal or whatever,
that tree goes
it's
up.
just going to be within my confines of my.
Yes. That's what we.
Got you. And then so taking that to the next step though. So
Mayor, if I could, I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, go please.
Clarify. There's one piece in there. You're right the way you described it. However, we did include a section with respect to if that common sewer lateral traverses a vacant lot, then all parties to that common sewer lateral are responsible for fixing that portion of the line on that vacant lot. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Understood. Gotcha. And does that also apply to, let's just say it runs somewhere along public roads? So maybe it's public property, so it's like a street that it takes a long way to get. Like let's just say Green Street for like where I live, I can, say it runs, 300 feet from the top to the bottom. Everyone's connected to it, but there's this long jog out to Highway 49. Is that kind of the same thing, like a vacant property land if it's on public property?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be treated like a vacant lot.
Gotcha. Okay. Understood. And then, so that goes the same for a single then as well.
Yeah.
In that case, if you're a single that runs through some other property line or through public or private, that's all going to be you.
It'll all be you unless we're looking at a situation where it's an individual building drain line from the building through numerous private properties that aren't using it, but
Right.
then eventually connects to the public sewer. That'd be the sole responsibility of that homeowner.
Of that owner.
That uses that line, nobody else.
And I'm guessing, and I could be wrong about this, but I'm guessing that because now that there are sort of this intermix of both public and private throughout, and it's mostly on the north side, I would say, but it might be cheaper at that point to just cut across to wherever the public line is at that point versus trying to go 300 yards or 100 feet or whatever on a private line. I don't know if that's,
Yeah, that could be a true statement because a lot of these, I think a lot of the reasons why these private laterals were put in is because the city's sewer system just didn't reach some of these areas that were being developed. And so the developer of those properties at the time, they decided just to go ahead and, I don't know if they even pulled a permit. There probably weren't permits back in the 30s or 40s or whenever these were first installed to accommodate the sewer collection from the individual properties. So what I could see is that in a situation where a line is failing, Because what the ordinance originally tried to do, I'm just going to differentiate for what it did, because the real concern was, well, I don't want to pay for a line that's over on these other properties. I only want to pay for just what's on my property or from my house, and then that comment on the property. This was just a way to say that everyone would equally share in the cost of repairing that common lateral.
Right.
But we've sort of bifurcated it. It'll make it a little bit more complex for us if we were going into repair. Say, for example, that common sewer lateral is an aging cast iron that has no bottom, or if it's an Orangeburg pipe, that we're not going to allow somebody to then connect, just fix their portion, and then connect to a pipe that's Orangeburg. It's going to have to all be replaced, but the cost will be portioned out to the individual property owners per the change that we made in the ordinance.
Understood. Thank you. Appreciate that.
But I think the reasoning behind the first example of you're in this daisy chain of sewage, and you're selling your house.
That's a great name for a band
Yes,
as well.
I think
Daisy
that'll
Chain
be
of Sewage.
my indie band will be called the Daisy Chain of Sewage. Anyway, the point is that there was a concern that if you're trying to sell your house and you're in the middle of this,
Yeah.
you could be hung up because you would be trying to fix things on other people's properties, and that could become time consuming. So what we said was, you fix your bit, then you can sell your house. You can go through escrow, and it gets done. And you're not having to deal with this other stuff, except for some very specific things. The other thing too is, this only applies to a handful of properties in town. 90-something% of the sewer connections that go into the public sewer system are one-off.
Individual.
One-off. You got a house, there's the sewer, and your stuff's going right into it, and there's nobody sharing or anything else.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much anything built after 1985, probably maybe even before that, probably are not on these types of systems.
Yeah, Mayor, one comment I want to make is I think I neglected to actually specifically answer your question. Yes, if an individual homeowner wishes to disconnect from a common sewer lateral and run a new line directly to a city main, they can do so.
Gotcha. Yep. Just whatever the cost is going to be, and yeah, gotcha. Understood. And like I said, I think in some cases that might end up being the preferential way to go, because it may be actually cheaper, depending on if there's a nearby, sewage hookup. So,
Yeah.
Yes,
I was going
Vice
to say,
Mayor.
the 10% is where it gets really sticky, and not everyone is the same, and it gets really complicated. So, I hear that people are wanting the city to take over it and fix all the problems, and as John said, we all have our private sewer lateral to the road. I mean, you can argue that point, well, that still benefits all the public, so then you want the city to take over everything. Well, that's not really financially feasible or fair. When you're looking at the private common sewer laterals, when you have them running under private property, I don't think that's something the city should have to take over. I mean, I understand it's a difficult thing that neighbors have to talk and communicate and cooperate to, get their common thing that they need fixed. I don't think the city needs to be in the middle of that, trying to mediate that and solve those problems for them. Those are things that they need to do. In terms of, inheriting the line that's under the roadway, well, that is an interesting thing to talk about after it's been brought up to code. This isn't everyone else's responsibility to fix these problems. Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead.
So,
my mind, and even when I'm talking to myself, I use my hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like I said, that it all benefits the public. That's a really slippery slope. We could say, well, there's trees that need to be taken down that will benefit the whole public. There's drainage issues that will benefit the other neighborhoods. We should just make the city, we're not going to be able to pay for all of that. Well, not unless we're going to, pass more measures and collect more money. That's the reality of this, is if we were flush in money and we could just do this and there's no big deal, we would love to do that. But there are problems that the city did not create that need to be fixed. And so for those reasons, I'm not in favor of using Measure H&L money to fix those either. But, we could have the conversation of the lines that are under the public roads that are brought up to code that then the city could take over. That's something reasonable, I think we could talk about in the future that could be reasonable. But yeah, there's just a lot of levels to this and a lot of different issues, and that's what I'm saying.
Okay, with all that, there is something that I would actually kind of like to see possibly that council considered this next coming years as putting in as a project, because I do know that the city does have some areas that are unmapped. I actually happen to live in one of those areas. So my thought on that is like, okay, so I go to sell my house or just do an improvement, and I scope my line and I get to the end of it, wherever it is, and it's, runs into another pipe. Okay, well, since I'm not mapped, I don't know who that pipe belongs to. So now I've gone to my property line, it ties in with something, and I don't know where the rest of that goes. Well, so I'm not gonna scope everything until I absolutely figure out where it's going. So with that consideration, I really think in those areas, the city needs to come up with something, whether we do a private contractor or, because I know the city does have camera equipment to look in lines. However that works and however we can figure out, I do think the city needs to step up a little bit in those areas and say, hey, look, we understand that you don't know where it's going. So, do you measure just to your property line, put in your Y, and is that going to be good enough for the COLC? Or are we going to, is there going to be an issue there with at least those residents? So that's just a small concern, and that's that 1% of 1% that we're going to deal with in the city. The rest of it, I think we're doing just fine. I'm in the real estate industry. If you've got a good real estate agent, they are having you scope your pipe anyway, just to make sure, because the last thing you want to do is have an issue after you buy the house. A good real estate agent's going to say, hey, look, we need to do this inspection. It's a common thing. If they find something, most of the time it's usually not that big a deal. Yes, sometimes it can cost a little bit of money, but that's part of the negotiation in selling a house. And as a homeowner, coming up with like, okay, well, yep, I guess there is a problem maintenance-wise, so how are we going to negotiate through this in a sale? So, and I have rarely seen that kind of stuff unless it's extremely extreme, hold up anything. So that part of it I'm not worried about. But like I said, we do have that 1% of 1% that we're going to run into a little here and there. And I'm sure at that point with the planning department and with City Works and the city, it can be worked through. But there are others areas that, like I said, I would love to see a project that we can get those areas mapped out so everybody knows for sure.
My question to you, David, is why is it my responsibility to scope out your private line? So if your line goes...
No, that's not what I'm...
Listen to
okay.
me. Your line could go across multiple private properties, and according to what you're proposing, you want the city to pay for all that scoping of those private lines.
No. I'm not talking about the city running out and paying for all the private lines to be scoped. So if I go to, the question was, if I go to sell my house, and I know my property line goes X amount of direction that way and X amount of direction that way, and I scope it, and I get to the distance of my property,
well, that's covered.
or it
that's
ties
covered
in,
it,
or
yeah.
it ties in right to a pipe. But in those areas that aren't mapped, do we know if that is a common sewer lateral or is it a line from the city? We don't know because it's not mapped. So at that point, are you eligible for a COLC or are you not, or what are they trying to find? So this is what I'm saying. This is a small portion of everything.
Okay, well then that's a question I have for staff,
Yeah.
because I believe we have our sewers mapped.
Yeah, we know where our
So we know
Mayor,
where
if
ours
I may,
are.
all city lines are mapped. The only unknowns are some of these private laterals that Councilmember Yarborough is referring to.
And I guess in my example, the house on Myrtle, where I know it goes into, because I scoped it out, I actually scoped it all the way down to Canal Street. I just wanted to see, just kind of for my own edification. Once I got to my property line, I knew where my property line was, and I knew where the break was, because the reason I was there was the line had broken right at my property line. So we scoped it to there, and then I just happened to go the rest of the way. But I knew that wasn't the city's, because it was, well, it actually, at the time, I think it belonged to Kurt's dad, the house. Or he might have sold it by then. But I knew it was a piece of private property. So I knew that was not a city line because it's on a piece of private property. And I mean, I guess the question is, do we own any sewer lines on private property? Well,
Yes.
Yes, and
Yeah,
that's,
the
I'm asking
city
a question.
has sewer lines that are on private property, but within an easement.
Within an easement, right.
Utility
Okay, so
easement.
there are known things. There is no unknown city sewer, publicly owned city sewer line.
All city lines are mapped.
Mapped, okay.
How about the one that was on Tunnel? I thought we had to move that one when we did. We found that one that wasn't. Was it a private service? Okay, gotcha. And we moved that one out, right? That came out of the.
That was actually a private service that went through
Like that
I believe
building,
two
right?
other parcels that didn't receive any benefit from it. And what she ended up doing was disconnecting from Spring Street, tying on to out on Highway 49.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, so when we're talking about your line, I don't think it's the city's responsibility
No, it's
to
not. That's
find
not what
out
I'm
where
saying.
it goes until you
No, that's
attach.
not,
Okay,
that's not what
that's
I'm
what it
saying.
sounded like to
Because
me.
I actually have all the maps. And for a good portion of the neighborhood that I am in, there's nothing mapped. It doesn't show, I mean, it shows, sure, it shows some city lines, but it shows some city lines in other streets over. It doesn't show any city lines in the area that I'm talking about. At the very end of the street, it does show the line that Mark Acuna and all those guys did. But on the other side of the street, it shows nothing.
Right, so
So there's no-
those people have a lot of work to do to figure
Well,
out
that's-
where
so
their
that's-
stuff is. Why is it the city's responsibility to figure their stuff out? I mean, that's what it sounds like you're proposing.
No, that's not what I'm proposing. So if I run into, this is what I'm trying to say, if I run into, I start scoping, and all of a sudden I run into a line, okay, who does that line belong to? Well, I'm not going to scope everything and try and run around and do everybody. This is what I think the general public's trying to talk about here, is I'm not going to run around and start scoping everything, especially if the buyer is paying for this. The buyer and anybody that's going to come out to a transaction is going to scope it till it ties into a line. If it ties into a line, they're going to go, okay, nope, everything looks good. You tie into a line right here. Here's your video. They're going to send that video in, and are they going to get a COLC or not?
If you're off of if your line is intact, and I think if in the simple answer is, if you scope it and you go beyond your property line and you can determine that you're beyond your property line, then yes, you would. Then you will then know. One of the reasons why I'm talking about trying to do this information gathering thing is if you have two properties next to each other, this is yours, this is your neighbor. Now, you know it's a you know who owns it. It's the person who owns the property next to you. They own that line. So, I mean, own it. So it's their responsibility. So once you've gone onto their property, you'd say, okay, and you'd have your map, and you could even draw it and say, it kind of goes here. That
We hope,
becomes a
yeah.
new piece of information. Then if this property ever sells, then they would do the same process, and they'd go, oh, well, it backs to this way, and then it goes down to the next, And that's how you would aggregate data, and then you would eventually know where it all went.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could make a brief comment on
Sure.
Councilmember Clarici's statements that he made. We do collect data. So every time there's a building permit issued, we collect data on the location of those lines, the private lines. We then provide those to the engineering department, and then they include them on their maps.
Okay, so just for clarification, for a sale transaction and a buyer does it, they scope it to where it ties into a line, whether they know what that line is or not, they're done. They get a COLC. Okay.
Yeah, I know where you're. I guess the only difference would be is if it was a single line that just kept meandering and you never had anyone else tie into it. Then I guess that would be your own one
Yes, and that would be,
convoluted.
well, so that's what
single line.
That's what I'm saying. So basically, the minute it ties into another line,
You're
that's
off.
where a standard inspection's going to stop. They're going to
Yeah,
go, okay,
wherever
that's
that
not
might
you.
be.
You're tied into the line, and that goes somewhere else. So that's as far as we're going to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that yes.
Mayor, I was just going to say, and I would encourage anybody that has questions about those lines in their area, please come in and talk to Public Works Engineering. We'll be happy to sit down and show you what we know, and we'll show you what we don't know too, and then we can, figure out, because maybe there is something that we're missing that, based on, Councilmember Yarborough, maybe there's something we're missing.
Yeah,
That we could look at, and is.
I mean, I've talked with my
Publicly
neighbors. We got a
involved.
pretty good idea of where
Yeah.
everything's going.
Right.
But at the same time, there's just, like I said, none of us have any mapping that
Yeah.
any of us could find of.
Yeah, and like I say, Public Works has been through a lot
Fortunately,
of
nobody's
that.
had any
They-
issues,
They
so.
may have some ideas too that they can add to the information you have. And like I say, Nick and Melissa, and even Pierre, any of them will be happy to talk to you and go through those maps and kind of explain what we know and what we don't know. And, maybe together we do come up with some information without having to do a lot of work, that we can be fairly sure what things are. And if there are things where things are tied into a public line, there's a possibility, that they may already know, we think we've seen this when we've scoped this line before. This is where it ties in. So they may have information that may not be clear on the map, that they can answer questions and help figure things out too. So
Yeah, no, just wanted to make it clear so everybody
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
gets it.
No,
'Cause
that's
I know
good
there's
to
other people
daylight
watching,
it.
so.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Did you have
Well, one of the, when I was talking to Mark about this, a lot of these, these folks were smart, and they were practical, and they found, the line of least resistance. Anybody that's tried to dig around in this town knows that there are places that it is not possible. So my guess is that for a lot of these, especially the common laterals where you were trying to collect your neighbors and stuff, they found the places where the dirt was dirt, where they could actually dig down. One of the issues that I know about, and we've actually discovered this in the city, is that, and even on my property on Myrtle, they buried the dang line about that far under the ground. It was really easy to replace because I didn't have to do a lot of digging, and that can be a problem in and of itself. But in terms of just a lot of it was just line of sight. They knew the sewer was down there. They knew where they were going through these properties. These were the easiest places to dig, and that's where they dug. And so I think it's good to have a lot of questions like that. And I think it's good for the public to bring these questions to the table. What we're going to probably discover is it's going to make a lot more sense than we imagine. There's going to be weird stuff. There's going to be ones where we just go, that guy was high because it was just bad. But most of it's going to be very straightforward, very straightforward. They're going to go, oh yeah, these were the houses, there was the sewer line, they had to go through here. Boom, there it is.
Yeah, at least on the north side, the good part is that it isn't a huge amount of area.
No, it's
a finite,
Yes.
it's a finite area that we have to kind of, go through, not miles and miles of stuff, so. Question I had on, so say everything passes as is today, we are going to put together the fact sheet, if you will, for folks. My question is, we have 30 days and then this goes into effect. I don't know if this will be done in 30 days. Will it be done in 30 days? Because I want to make sure that we have something for that's public facing before we start enforcing against this.
It's very
That's my
difficult at
question.
this time. Will just tell you, we're very short-staffed. We're running a skeleton crew right now.
So that's, and I understand that. So I guess what I'm saying is, if we do 30, it goes into effect 30 days, but I like to have as much information out there to the public as possible so that we don't start enforcing against this until we actually have the documents that we were going to provide to the public to do. So I don't know if y'all have a problem with that, but
No.
I want to make sure that we don't start enforcing it and then we put something in that's going to be, counter to what we told, an initial person. I want everyone to have the same information.
Right, and we can look at maybe the next water bill, getting that information out to help
Yeah.
spread that too.
Because I think it does going to take a lot of education and for people to know how this is going. So, okay, good. David, any Nicole, any questions or comments?
No, I don't have much. I compromised to where we ended up here. I think, I'm okay with moving forward. I'm not thrilled about the property transfer portion of it, but I do think limiting it to the portion on your property that you have control over when you're on one of these common private lines sort of resolves, at least you don't have to, litigate against your neighbors to sell your property. So that was my biggest concern, and that was addressed with the changes made.
Thank you. One other thing I wanted to include in and I keep calling it FAQs, but I know it's much more than that. But, and I'm trying to remember the street that actually has like an HOA in place to deal with theirs. But Bush, yes. That's best practice. That's best practice, and we should be providing that information. So if we discover another 5, 6, 7 home on a private sewer lateral, you are like Exhibit 1A of how to do it correctly. And so we should be providing that information, and so people understand how to put that together so that, not that they're going to be litigating against each other because of the way we're building this, but because this is how they can work together in order to make it, a better way of handling this going forward. So I like to include that in it as well, so that people have a sense of how to set these up and make it more, cost efficient for everybody. All right. Any other comments? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Gottberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Saragosa?
Aye. No, thank you, everybody. Pierre, team, staff. This is a ton of work.
Yeah.
We really appreciate all the efforts, and I appreciate all the comments from the public as well. It was a much better and more informed, product by what you all brought to us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, council.
Thank you. Why don't we take a 10-minute recess? I know I need a recess, so I'll take that as my own prerogative to do that. Thank you. Let's get the show back on the road. All right. We're going to have a smaller audience going forward, I think, here. But thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. So we're going to move to item 12.2 on the discussion and action items, and that is consider approving budget appropriations, rejecting a bid and a bid protest received from B&M Builders Incorporated, and approving the award of a construction contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, which was Doug Veerkamp General Engineering. And Ms. McConnell has this item for us.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you this evening will allow the Broadway Sidewalks project to proceed into construction, as you mentioned, by approving budget appropriations, rejecting a bid and bid protest, and awarding a construction contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. The Broadway Sidewalks will construct new curb, gutter, and sidewalk along Broadway between Mosquito Road, Main Street, and Schnell School Road. This project is funded by the Federal Highway Safety Improvement Program. As you may recall, this project was first released for public bidding in March, and only one bid was received. Following staff discussions with Caltrans, who oversees the federal funding on the project, the City Council approved rejecting the bid and re-advertising in hopes to draw more interest in the project and ensure a competitive bidding process. The project was re-advertised, and the second bid opening was held in June. At that time, 2 bids were received. Unfortunately, both bids were higher, and there was insufficient funding to award a contract. Staff discussed the shortfall with Caltrans, and they offered to program additional HSIP funds when the project, at the start of the state fiscal year in October. City Council then approved rejecting the bids and re-advertising during the time frame when additional funding would become available. Staff re-advertised the project in September, and a public bid opening was held on October 17th. 3 bids were received from B&M Builders in the amount of $1,819,610. The second was from Doug Veerkamp General Engineering in the amount of $1,874,466. The third was Central Valley Engineering and Asphalt in the amount of $1,952,269. Staff performed a bid analysis of all 3 bids, and it was determined that there were informalities and irregularities in the bid proposal from B&M Builders. First, the notice to bidders, which provides the instructions on how to submit a bid, stated that bidders must be on the plan holders list no later than October 11th. The plan holders list is used to track and maintain time-sensitive materials, requirements of the project, and information about the bidding process. It's a tool not only for the agency, but also for prospective bidders to ensure that no one is left out in the exchange of information. B&M Builders did not add themselves to the plan holders list until October 17th, a week later, which was the day that bids were opened. Secondly, the bid documents, as required by the project's federal funding, stated that a 13% disadvantaged business enterprise, or DBE, contract goal needed to be met. If a bidder is not able to meet the DBE goal, they must submit a good faith effort package within 5 days of bid opening to show their good faith efforts and their efforts to meet the goal. In their bid, B&M Builders proposed a 0.45% DBE commitment, which is well short of the 13% contract goal. Subsequently, they did not submit the required good faith effort documentation. As such, the bid from B&M Builders was determined to be inadequate, incomplete, and non-responsive, and staff is recommending for the bid to be rejected. Staff notified B&M Builders that their bid does not meet the requirements of the contract documents, and B&M Builders submitted a bid protest. Their bid protest asked the city to waive the informality or irregularity of the bid and award the contract anyway. The bid protest was reviewed by the city attorney, and a formal response was provided on November 3rd. The city attorney determined that the bid protest lacks merit, and B&M Builders did not qualify to submit a bid in the first place due to not being on the plan holders list. Staff is recommending that the city council deny the bid protest. Based on that, staff has determined that Doug Veerkamp General Engineering is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. The bid from Doug Veerkamp is lower than the bids received in the prior 2 bid openings and still within the amount of funding available. Additionally, they propose a 13.3% DBE participation on their contract, thereby meeting the project DBE goal. Staff is recommending the approval of a contract with Doug Veerkamp General Engineering. Also included in the items tonight is the recommended approval of federal budget appropriations and local match. These funds will fully fund the project construction contract and move the project forward into construction. We are anticipating that construction will begin in the spring as soon as weather is favorable. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Do we have any questions? All right. Seeing no questions, we will go ahead and open up for public comment.
Your last commenter left. Yay, this is a good one to go forward. I think this is very appropriately done.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yes, we will close public comment and bring it back to us. And yes, Sue said it right. This is a good one, and it's pretty clear as day that the bid should be rejected. And Mona also did a really good job in her response back to the bidders as well. So with that, I will entertain a motion or comments, additional comments.
No, I'm excited because I walked this and was part of that committee that walked the sidewalks. It had to be 10 or more years ago. So it really shows how much work goes into projects and how long it takes for them to get there. So I am super excited about this, and I will move staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Gottberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, moving along to item 12.3, which is consider approving a consulting service agreement and notice to proceed with Dock and Engineering for environmental and engineering design services for Canal Street Phase 1. And again, Ms. McConnell has this item for us.
Good evening again. The item before you will allow the much-anticipated Canal Street project to proceed into the preliminary engineering and environmental documentation phase by approving a consulting services agreement with Dock and Engineering. Canal Street was originally identified as a priority locally funded project in the capital improvement budget in 2017-2018. It was originally identified as a pavement reconstruction project that would also include the investigation and repair and replacement of underground utilities. As staff began to evaluate the needs of the corridor, it became evident that Canal Street is also lacking in adequate bicycle and pedestrian facilities to support access to nearby amenities like Markham Middle School and El Dorado High School. Currently, Canal Street has substandard sidewalk, mostly on just one side of the street, and no bicycle facilities. Staff monitored potential funding opportunities since the development of the original project concept. In 2022, staff applied for and successfully secured funding to begin the project. During that application process, staff decided to split Canal Street into two separate project phases due to their unique needs. The northern portion of Canal Street was identified as Phase 1, from Cumbellic Road to Cougar Lane. The Phase 1 project also has a new sidewalk segment identified on Cumbellic Road from Canal Street to David Circle, where there is currently no sidewalk. The southern portion of Canal Street was identified as Phase 2, from Cougar Lane to US Highway 50, and is expected to have more significant utility repair work than Phase 1. The city was awarded $1,327,950 in congestion mitigation and air quality improvement program funds for Phase 1, leveraging Measure L funds as a match. The city was also awarded $750,000 in surface transportation block grant program funds for Phase 2. The awarded funds are for engineering, environmental documentation, and the right-of-way phases. The construction phase is currently not funded. The city submitted a separate application to fund the construction of Phase 1A, which is the Cumbellic Road sidewalk portion of the project, but these funds won't be authorized until bid documents have been prepared. Staff released a request for proposals for engineering and design and environmental services for the Canal Street project, Phase 1 and Phase 2, on July 27th. 4 proposals were received from REY Engineers, Docken Engineering, GHD, and Wood Rogers. A panel of 3 reviewed and evaluated the proposals, and then interviews were held on September 27th for all 4 proposals. Unanimously, Docken Engineering's proposal and interviews scored the highest among the panel, demonstrating exceptional knowledge and understanding of the project. Staff is recommending approval of a consulting services agreement with Docken for the negotiated scope and fee in the total combined amount of $3,231,170.23, which includes both Phase 1 and Phase 2. Staff is also recommending issuance of Notice to Proceed Number 1 for Docken Engineering to kick off the project approval and environmental documentation phase of the project. With the proposed kickoff project date of 2024, we are expecting construction would be in the year 27-28. That concludes my verbal report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. And I'm always amazed how you guys can get it down to 23 cents to that level of. But any questions? It's pretty straightforward as well. Yes, I will then go ahead and open 12.3 for public comment as well.
Sue Rodman, Measure H, Measure L. This is a really good use of Measure L funding because this is a street that really gets heavy use with 2 schools, and it is in sad shape, the 2 sections that they're talking about. The middle section that we already did looks beautiful and still is functioning very well. But as soon as you go down from Cougar Lane to go down to Cumbellic, it is pothole city. And coming in from Highway 50 up to the high school, it's not a lot better, and it's very narrow, and people put their garbage cans on the sidewalks, and the students are walking in the street, and it really needs some help. So both of these sections of Canal Street really need our help. So I'm glad to see they're working through it to get it done. So, yay team.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close public comment. I do hope that as we move forward on this one, that we'll have opportunity maybe for other funding opportunities because of the schools on that road. I think we were able to pull some funds down for that middle part of the project, and maybe there'll be other opportunities. I'd love to see this one get done sooner rather than later, but I know it's going to take a bit.
Yeah, all our roads are important, and but I don't think folks realize obviously the schools and safety and all that stuff, but also lots of people from out of town because they're going up to the high school or they're going up to the middle school for any of a number of things, sporting events typically, not just for the schools themselves, but there's a lot of recreational programs that run out of those things, and they drive up and down that road, and it is just a terrible advertisement for Placerville. I mean, some of the other roads are bad, but that one's real bad. And so the idea of getting it fixed, public health and safety, the most important thing, but also if we get that road fixed, it is such a great just advertisement for the town to have that particular road fixed because a lot of people drive up and down Canal Street to go to things, and from out of town too. So this is exciting.
Agreed. All right. Any other comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move staff report.
I'll second.
All right. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
They know.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Gottberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melissa. I'll also put a plug in for B Street. I know I talked to Cleve about this, but it's that same issue. I mean, B's in a horrible shape too. And to John's point of the amount of people that go down B to go, whether it's going to Sequoia or going to the cemetery or to the schools, is another one where I'd love to see us, be able to do some work on that one too. So I'm putting a plug in for B Street.
Okay, there you go.
You might want to add Bedford to that too.
Well, that's
a lot of
right.
people going up and down Bedford for the Shakespeare Club, the whole bit. So
They all need help. They all need help.
That is very true. I know someone did tell me on Bedford that the potholes, because when the people cut through, during the busy times, it's like a natural way to slow traffic down because there's so many potholes on Bedford.
Totally torn up road.
But yes, you're absolutely right, David. Okay. We will move to item 13, which are council reports from other agencies, and we will start with Transit Authority.
Kind of a slow month. We didn't even have any action items, but we did receive a presentation on the short-range transit plan update.
Yes.
All right.
County Transportation Commission. The RTP process is starting and will be proceeding through next year. The RTP is a foundational document for regional transportation planning. It has all the projects, funding sources. It's a very good thing. Everybody should read it, or at least know it exists. We adopted our RTIP, which will then Regional Transportation Improvement Program for 2024, which will go into the State Transportation Improvement Program. They are funding a number of intersection projects, most of which we don't care about because they're not in the city. But there is one we do care about, and that is they are funding the beginning of the planning work for the last leg of Ray Lawyer Drive, so the westbound off-ramp. So that is of note. They are proceeding with the Greater Placerville Area Safety Plan. I forget exactly the name. That is important to us. There will be some public outreach on that fairly soon. The draft plan is being put together. There are a number of evacuation routes and whatnot and ideas that are in it. That'll be of interest to the community. We also had evaluation for the executive director, Woodrow Deloria, and we said many very nice things about him, and which he deserves, and his staff. So that was it for that.
All right. Thank you, John. You're up again.
LAFCO, a meeting I'd rather forget. My behavior was not exemplary. I'll admit it. I got a little excited.
But necessary,
Sometimes it was necessary. You know how I get. And so, and I will take a little, I'll disagree with our city manager's report on this. We actually did achieve a couple of things. I agree with him in one respect. Nobody reads these things, and I shouldn't get excited about something that no one reads. On the other hand, it exists, and it should be factual. We were successful in taking out some offensive language about something that is way inside baseball, regarding the state controller's office and information from 4 years ago. We actually got them to remove that from the resolution and the findings, which I thought was actually important. We also got them to take the offending language out of the very beginning of our finance description and move it to the bottom. So in a document that nobody reads, it will be the very last thing in that document. So even guaranteeing even more so, no one will see it. The sphere of influence thing, I still get heartburn over that. I will say one thing, and I've talked to the city manager about this as well. I've talked to Cleve about this. We need to get starting on this now. We're not going to F around with this. We've got to get going. We've got to identify the properties, especially up in Smith Flat, and really get on it. And I thought we were doing that this last year, but it turned out we weren't. It was weird. Don't want to get into it. otherwise, it was a great meeting, and, I apologized for my behavior, so, yeah. Anyway, but I think actually we got some very important, interesting, I don't want to say concessions, about spheres of influence and annexation. We actually got them to admit some stuff, or at least the executive director to admit some things that we might actually be able to use to our advantage. And so I think actually it turned out very well. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I mean, I actually really appreciate whatever you apologize for. I actually appreciate it very much. So.
Nicole was there. She might comment on it. No, don't comment on it. I got a little out there.
I mean, because it was a very aggravating report when it first came out. I mean, I know Nicole and I had a long conversation, so.
She made it, actually, Councilmember Gopper brought a very important thing and got it put in. Go for it. The whole thing with the process about.
Oh,
the
yes.
sphere of
I
influence
did
process.
get them to remove the sphere of influence process from the Placerville MSR.
Yeah.
So we do not have a specialized process
Yeah.
that requires us to basically do an annexation in order to do a sphere of influence change.
Yeah, yes, that same look. It was the same look. Yeah.
So I did think that was important, and that was a
I'm
win.
glad-
That
I'm
did
glad
get
I
taken
remembered.
out of
Yeah.
the document.
Yeah, I'm glad we remembered that part as well.
Oh, well, thank you both for your vigilance on this and for, representing us and advocating for our city. All right, SACOG. So we had a lively discussion about a new joint powers authority. This one will be for tolling lanes on the Yolo Causeway. So it will be a JPA of SACOG, Yolo Transit Authority, and potentially in some form the state of California, Caltrans District 3. So there's still some discussion about voting versus sort of ex officio for Caltrans, which I support, which is ex officio as opposed to an actual voting member. I think it's a very strange and unprecedented move to have Caltrans be a voting member on a local board. It's not been done in any other JPA, and they are really wanting it to be. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. But it'll be the first. It would be the first in the 6-county region. It would be the first toll that we would have in the area. I think the next one would probably be somewhere on I-5 in Sacramento County if there's a second one to be had, and then maybe down the line, Placer County. I don't think us, Yola, or Sutter or Yuba are going to have any type of tolling authority in the next few decades. So I don't think we have to worry about that. But yeah, exactly. So, but that was a good discussion, and we'll see where that goes. And then in this board meeting, I was elected chair of SACOG for next year, which is great. First time Placerville will hold that.
I think we are the smallest city that's ever had that position.
Yep.
Ever.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So, thank you very much. And then Darren Soon from the city of Elk Grove, good friend as well, will be vice chair. So. It'll be a fun year next year, and I'm excited about chairing SACOG. So, all right, Pioneer.
Yeah, so it was a good meeting, short meeting. We were just cleaning up a few things before the end of the year. They will be sending out a new packet to all the cities that are involved. We're just cleaning up some basic language to allow the board of directors to make some decisions without having to go to each city every time, just because we just don't want to be, onerous issues to have to get on the agenda each time they want to make a decision for something. Went over some of the SBAs and stuff having to do with the powers for energy, trying to, which bills passed, which bills haven't passed. Most of them didn't pass. A couple of them did. We're going to keep fighting for that. Other than that, that was pretty much about it.
All right. I will say, and I think I've told you this before, I think the communication and the outreach materials have gotten so much better.
Yeah, so
a lot better.
So their website was actually voted #1 in the nation for what the changes that they just did. So, yeah, they're doing a really good job in getting the community outreach much better.
Yeah, because I mean, there was so much. I mean, there's still confusion, but I think it's getting a lot better, and people are understanding it.
It is getting better.
Yep. All right, thank you, David. What are we at? Fire Safe Council.
Well, earlier, Mark Acuna kind of covered their efforts on the March event, so I won't reiterate that. But we also had a presentation from Mark Egbert, and if you've never heard his presentation, we should almost have him here because I can't duplicate everything he said and they're doing in the county as far as projects and funding and all sorts of good stuff's going on.
We should. I mean, we can definitely have them do a information item. That'd be great. All right, thank you, Jackie. COC, Opportunity Knox.
We voted to move the draft MOU for the temporary navigation center forward to county council, so it is now with them for review. And I think the other thing of note would be that the county replaced their board member, so they have now a voting board member is Timolim James, which is a county staff member rather than a supervisor, and they have Supervisor Parlin as their alternate.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Is that someone like from HHS?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I was just going to add to that, if you recall the Navigation Center update that came out, it was talked in there about encouraging people to be involved with that. There's some elections coming up, right, Nicole?
Yes.
That it would be very important if we have people that we think could be on there.
That's a good point.
That could assist in moving that in the right direction. Let's put it that way.
So there's two things. So one is we currently have open seats on the EDOK board. So if there are members of the public that meet any of the various categories to apply, and the other is that the executive committee, which is essentially the, chair, I'm going to use the words we would normally use, but basically the chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer positions, we'll have our elections from the board in January as to who on our current board or the new people we bring into the board get appointed to those positions. And I do know that the HHHS staff member that was just appointed to the board is interested in being on that executive committee.
Oh, I think that would be good.
Yeah.
I would be supportive of that.
And that's I don't know that I can do it because of my work schedule, but they do most of their meetings during the day, which conflicts with my regular job with the thing that pays my mortgage. So
Definitely understood on that one. But yeah, having HHS on that executive board would actually be very helpful. So.
Yep.
Okay, I will open up item 13 for any public comment. All right, seeing none. Thank you, everybody, for the updates. And I'll move to item 14, which are any requests for future agenda items. Anybody have anything? All right, seeing none. Staff-wise, anything?
Nope.
All right, cool. All right, we'll move to item 15, city manager and staff reports. Chief Cordero's not here, but we do a receive and file on Fire Station 25 run report. Mr. Rivas, 15.2, anything you want to highlight?
Just a couple things, if I may, Mayor. Looking at the report, looks like we had a very good month in November. If you look on the bottom of page 2 at the revenue, we had quite a bit of activity. We had some larger permitting that brought us basically $67,000 in building revenue. Impact fees we consider pretty impressive. $23,000 for water meters, for water, $22,000 for sewer. We brought in $55,000 traffic impact mitigation fees and $3,900 for park. And if you look at the bottom of the last page where we have the construction valuation, I was looking at that and I thought maybe that graph was a mistake. I thought that was Michael Mann's CO2 hockey stick chart. but it's not. We just had a lot of very large valuation projects that came in and sort of caused that little hockey stick hike. Fortunately, this won't contribute to global warming, but it will help our revenues. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Pierre. Do we have any questions, comments? All right. Thank you again, Pierre. All right. And then, Mr. Warren, anything you'd like to highlight on our quarterly HDL sales tax reports?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So this isn't that great of a report, but I'll go through the numbers because it's good information. So your Bradley Burns sales tax, which is your general fund sales tax, actually experienced a year-over-year decrease of $185,357, or 10.7% on the cash basis. And it did include prior period adjustments on both sides, the 21-22 and 22-23 years. And so when you remove those adjustments, it actually brings that decrease down to 9.4%, or $161,000. The decrease is primarily due to kind of a decrease, a slowing in auto sales, building and construction, and the state pool, which is online sales tax. The budget assumption for that fiscal year, this was the last quarter for the fiscal year 22-23. The assumption was 1.4% decrease. So we did assume a decrease, just not a big enough decrease. So there's about $137,000 swing, or 8 percentage points. We're not alone, though. El Dorado County experienced a 5.1% decrease, SAC region 2.2 negative, and the state overall 3%. We appreciate all of our businesses, especially our top 25. We did have a little jockeying going on. Grocery Outlet and Safelite Auto Glass on Placerville Drive were added to the list, and then Shell Oil and Tractor Supply dropped off this quarter. Looking at our HJ and L sales taxes, they also experienced a decrease, $39,316 for Measure J, or 10%. Again, includes prior period adjustments. When you back those out, it's about a 9.2%. We did a better job at assuming the decrease. We actually assumed a 7.8 decrease on our add-on taxes. So for J, it was a $30,000 decrease budget assumption. So it's about a $5,600 swing. So not so far off on our add-on taxes. So that was good news. Again, primarily due to building construction, general consumer goods, and fuel service stations, decrease in fuel prices. So spoiler alert, though, we did get our preliminary results for the third quarter, and I'm pleased to report, just 10,000-foot level, that we experienced better performance. On the cash basis, it was actually positive when you take out the aberrations, slightly negative on Bradley Burns, but all your add-on taxes were positive. So that's a very good sign. And that's kind of in line with HDL, what they projected. They projected the first quarter of 2024 would actually experience an increase for the first time. But this is the first increase we've experienced in 4 quarters, so that's very good news. And I'll provide additional information probably in January or February.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions or comments? All right, and thanks again. Thanks for the other update for the folks as well. So know that hopefully we're on maybe a corrective curve there. So that's yes. So thank you. All right. Again, I'll let people read the upcoming items on their own. So that takes us to adjournment at 7:35. So thank you, everybody, and good evening, Placerville.